Hi, I'm Jonathan Mentor, the founder and CEO of Successment and a revenue scientist. In this week's video, we're going to be talking about 4 steps to 2x startup revenue growth called RWMC: right, wrong, missing, and confused. Many startups struggle not due to lack of quality products or services, but because of unclear strategies. From my experience, the common pitfalls that hinder startup growth are not differentiating priorities on the clock from priorities on the calendar. Right? Priorities on the clock manifest as metrics. These metrics ladder up on the clock day over day, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter to revenue outcomes on the calendar. And you have to plan for these things and assign specific operations, projects, and provision of assets to move in the direction of these goals. If not, you kind of lose track of things as some projects move forward before the other. And then if you're not measuring anything, you really lose your plot in the entire revenue growth story. RWMC is critical because what you want to do, you got to imagine like a Jeopardy game, right? With columns. What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What's missing and what's confusing about your revenue growth, right? And then you have to think about, okay, under each column, how do I measure these things, right? So then the story now becomes a bullet point because now you have to measure these things. You have to separate profit from passion. And then once you figure out how to measure these things, how do you improve what's going right? And how do you minimize what's wrong? How do you minimize what's confusing? And how do you plan a budget for what's missing, right? And then the fun part happens when you get to compare your version of right, wrong, missing, confused with your internal and external stakeholders, co-founders, heads of department, your landing team, key investors, key customers, key critics, because you're going to find out that the way that they're quantifying your growth and your success is very different from your own. The first component of right, wrong, missing, confused is right. Okay. So when I talk about right, when I talk about anything within the framework of revops science or revenue operations, it all has to do with revenue outcomes, right? So if you're doing something right, the way that you define it isn't, oh, I saved time, or oh, this feels good, or oh, that was really success. No. Let's measure. What was the recurring revenue outcome? So a sale really can't count, right? Unless it was a really, really big sale. But how are you going to repeat that big sale? You have to think about what are the things, the projects, the resources, the people, the time that you spent that are right in the frame of how can I draw the map back to recurring revenue? Now, this is the thing. Whenever I put RWMC together for entrepreneurs, it gets muddy because the first thing that I always have to rein them in on is how do you measure these things? If these things are going right, don't tell me a story. This isn't a story. This is actually going to become your dashboard for what's right, wrong, missing, confused. And then the fun part is when you get to plug that into what your performance looks like inside of the revenue operation. So don't tell me, oh, okay, oh, what's right is I hired a marketing manager. Why? How was that generating revenue? Oh, what's right is, oh, I did a sale like 3 months ago that was like $30,000. That's great. How do you repeat that? That's not recurring revenue. So you really want to focus on 2xing growth, right? But you can only do that when you focus on the things, the resources that you have at your disposal within your revenue operation that lead to recurring revenue outcomes. If it's not, then it belongs in some other column: wrong, missing, confused. And even if they exist in those wrong, missing, confused columns, you're still gonna have to measure these things, because if it's wrong, how do you make it right? Do you just get rid of it or do you improve it? You always have to be focused on the recurring revenue outcome. If not today, then when? If you can't tell me when, then it's a problem. So most recently, I was recruited to film on the reality show The Blocks by Wes Bergen, which is, think about Shark Tank meets America's Got Talent, right? And there was this one startup called Grand Rising And Grand Rising used RWMC to really focus in on what the metrics were. Now, Grand Rising is all about selling wellness and equanimity and woo-woo goddess spirituality, which is great, but that's still a business, right? So at the end of the day, you can be artistic as you want to be, but this is a business, not a hobby. So we use RWMC Confused to think about, okay, what are the products that we're selling that are generating recurring revenue? What are the services that we're selling that are generating recurring revenue? What are the channels that we're using? What partnerships are really, really worth it? And it really helped them to narrow down on eliminating the things that were just taking up a lot of time and refocusing things like web copy or social or public speaking engagements that really led to revenue outcomes.